Hi, today I am going to bring you a quick review and brief analysis of a movie that I just recently watched called Four Keeps. I chose Four Keeps because I just recently felt and got the urge to actually talk about a movie, and Four Keeps happens to be the last movie that I saw, so it's fresh in my mind. And not many people know about it, so I thought that maybe by talking about it a little bit, I can perhaps bring some interest to the film, and then others can see it if it sounds interesting to them. So basically, the movie came out in 1988. It was directed by John Avildsen, who directed the Karate Kid series, but is probably most well known for directing Rocky. And this is a departure from Rocky. Although, Rocky's kind of a love story in some regard. But this film, For Keeps, with the question mark, by the way. So, For Keeps, because you have to add the question mark emphasis on the title. Anyway, it's sort of a love story with pregnancy, with babies, a teenage pregnancy-oriented love story, if you will. Sort of in the same vein as Juno. I feel like Juno might be considered like a contemporary version of Four Keeps, although I thought that personally Juno was extremely overrated, perhaps one of the most overrated films of the 2000s. Wasn't a big fan. I'll leave it at that because I know a lot of people like the movie for some reason or another, and worship Diablo Cody. I still don't understand it, but whatever you want to do is fine with me. So, For Keeps, like Juno, basically involves two high school students, Molly Ringwald, and then some other gentleman that I'm not familiar with. I think that he's a newcomer, and this is one of the first films that he was in. Basically, they engage in a very erotic and emotionally heartfelt act of intercourse, and therein get pregnant and unexpectedly have a baby. And the film essentially just revolves around them deciding to actually have the child and the difficulties that they have with their parents for choosing to have their child, and dealing with essentially giving up their future plans to go to college and to have certain careers in order to actually be together and to raise the child. So I liked the film. I thought that it was pretty well done. I thought that for the most part it was entertaining, it was heartfelt, and was a pretty good display of sort of the it did a good job of conveying both the positives and negatives of teenage pregnancy, I suppose. Molly Ringwald was interesting in her role. I like Molly Ringwald, but she looks strange, and she sometimes scares me because of the fiery red hair and kind of the strange looking face. It sometimes freaks me out. But in this film, she seemed fine. She was relatively charming, likable. The Her husband, oh excuse me, I probably just gave a little bit away. Her significant other in the film, the father of their child, was also pretty interesting. They had a lot of chemistry, and the relationship was developed in such a way that you actually believed that they were, very into each other. The difficulty, well, one problem that I guess I had with the film was that they devoted very little time to the actual pregnancy itself. So 9 months worth of time where you probably could have had a lot of interesting things happen was pretty much just devoted to like 5 minutes of the film. And it goes from them getting pregnant to basically having the child in no time flat. And that was kind of strange to me. I thought that it was going to end on a sad note, which I kind of prefer films to do because it kind of takes the traditional Hollywood ending, which satisfies the audience, and then kind of turns it around and makes you be like, well, this is maybe a little bit more realistic. It's less optimistic. It's a little bit more pessimistic. I'm not supposed to talk about the ending. It could end anyway. It could end anyway, and perhaps it would be a sad ending or a happy ending, depending on your perspective. on child rearing as a teenager. Anyway, I give the film 3 out of 5 stars. I recommend seeing it, especially if you're a fan of 80s films or a fan of Molly Ringwald or Red Hair. If you like any of those things, you would probably like this film. If you don't, you probably wouldn't. So check it out, and that's all that I have to say about that.